drivers that we've identified, insurance trends that may be useful to you. Then we're going to zoom out a little bit and take you through the context which applies to all of financial service, not just insurance, and how marketeers and people who work in this industry can really connect the dots. So that's what this agenda is all about. So many of you may be familiar with the statistics that are shown here. Broadly speaking, we are a significant insurance market globally, both in terms of life and non-life. I'm not going to read all the stats from the slides. As you know, and we've been hearing for decades, the insurance industry is vastly underpenetrated. And that's the case from a global context as well as region. So globally, the figures quoted are somewhere in the 6 to 6.5% region of percentage penetration, but India is at a low 3.76. A large part of the market share is life insurance players. 75% of that is life. And we record significant numbers in terms of business premium. We've also, as most of you know, increased the FDI from a regulation standpoint. So that has resulted in some boost for the industry. In terms of growth forecast, almost all the segments are looking at double-digit, very healthy forecast figures, and the overall market is expected to be in excess of $280 billion. It's a fair conclusion that the Indian insurance industry is really on a path of rapid, if not exponential growth, and that affects both life as well as non-life, and within that, standalone health insurance players as well, which are growing at a faster clip than the rest of the industry. So that's really what the road ahead is looking like from a growth forecast point of view. There have been some key drivers to this growth. Many of you would be familiar with these. Some of them are, of course, a younger working population proportion in terms of favorable demographics. A lot of government incentives have come over the years by way of specific programs that help increase penetration within insurance. Growing household savings is a common theme, which again affects the entire financial service spectrum. Awareness of financial products has increased over the years, partly thanks to the efforts that the insurance industry itself is taking in this regard. IRDAI, which is our regulator for insurance, has taken various initiatives, including the permission of conducting video-based KYCs or encouraging standardized products so that they can be more simpler to understand and they can help expand the market from an adoption point of view. And of course, we've all seen growth of digital channels, thanks in no small measure to COVID disruptions that we saw. But over the years, frankly, even before COVID and the pandemic crisis, we've seen digital adoption has been steadily increasing, and web aggregators and various other players that are exploring online channels are adding significantly to the overall mix. So these have been the growth drivers for the industry. In terms of certain trends, there are a variety of studies. We're just quoting from a few of them here. There is an increasing trend of data and significant appetite from players that are interviewed across industries to spend on both data and technology management. AI and analytics is really all pervasive now. It started with some level of chatbots and moved on to conversational AI. But there's a whole lot of behavioral analytics, machine learning based fraud controls that are picking up pace as well, and the insurance industry will be, of course, benefiting from all of that. In terms of process automation, RPA and various operational management has been on a steady path of automation, but we are now also expanding to event-based upselling, cross-selling, real-time updates are increasing across the board. As you know, a lot of youngsters as well as folks like us, pretty much adopt mobile in very healthy measures, and it's an increasing trend across age groups and dynamics. And of course, cybersecurity. So, just to share a small stat with you, in the first half of 2021 itself, cyber attacks across all industries increased by 29%. And the more we do things online and the more we move to an online world, which is always on, the more we're going to face threats as well as see countermeasures adopted for cybersecurity. So these industry trends really apply across insurance as well as the financial service spectrum, and in many cases across other industries as well. Now, as I mentioned, we'll zoom out and speak about financial services as a larger context. And there are a set of themes in my observation that emerge from what we are seeing around the world. So Firstly, there is greater awareness both inside and outside the organization. We spoke of how customer awareness is increasing, but so is employee awareness, channel partner awareness, the distribution agents that are part of this mix. There is an exponential growth seen from internet channels and digital channels across both segments as well as products that we have seen across the board. We now have real-time access to customer behavior, and the more we connect our devices and the more data and intelligence play a role in this, and that's pretty much the fourth point. The data and the ability to crunch data is now at an all-time high, and this has important implications for the insurance industry as well as marketing folks within financial services. So I want to take the next few minutes to really draw some thread around how this context applies to marketing. So from increased awareness of inside and outside, it also means customers are much more aware. And we've seen in many cases when we ourselves go to buy things, we are probably doing it after a whole lot of online research, having spoken to social media friends, friends and family. In many cases, we know more about products and services before we buy them than perhaps even some of the sales agents and the entire sales ecosystem does. Internet growth is exploding, and that's also resulting in global comparison. So an important point to remember is we are not just seeing this from a insurance product one being compared to product two, or insurance competitor one being compared to product competitor two, but it's also that we are comparing an iPhone experience with a Paytm app, and a Paytm with an Uber, and Uber with something else. And across the board, these comparisons are really intersecting with each other, which means that customers and the entire ecosystem is much more aware, and they have higher expectations. They have expectations of world-class design. They have expectations of always-on availability. There is a whole lot of increase in, if something can be so simple in my mind, using a service that I have encountered anywhere in the world, why can't other things be like that? And this is also resulting in a lot of skill gaps, because while data and the ability to crunch data is an increasing theme, there aren't enough, data professionals, data scientists, business leaders, technology experts who understand what to do with these, data elements and create a whole data estate around it. And skill gaps are a significant problem in this context. And finally, if I have to draw a thread from here, what this results in is, of course, as customers get more aware, marketeers will need to become more aware as well. As expectations increase and comparisons are made across the globe, a lot of companies that earlier were inward-looking and local footprint enabled will have to adopt global design standards, global awareness and sensitivity around these, do a lot more work around actionable insights and bringing relevance to the customer instead of, push-based marketing or spray and pray methods that used to justify the cost that is spent on, let's say, buying databases and just sending a shot in the dark and seeing whatever sticks. And data-driven marketing is likely to be, the way of the future, because we have now the ability to crunch the data. We have unlimited data at our disposal. We have real-time behavior that was, absolutely impossible for businesses and organizations and institutions to imagine, just a few, maybe a few decades ago. Even in the retail context, it was a very, very time-bound process to get any kind of intelligence from the system. Having access to unlimited real-time data opens up a lot of interesting facets for the industry. And so it falls upon us to really connect the dots. And by this, I mean connect the dots between, just customers, but also partners and employees. There are insights that are available across these channels and across these ecosystems. We'll have to kind of draw the line between front office, middle office, and back office. It's no longer enough to think about it in terms of silos. We also have to think of customers as customers, not just mobile customers or desktop customers. We have to connect the dots between devices, channels, and the various teams and silos that operate within a company. And the ability of a good data platform is really the way to do it. If we build that intelligence in this, and that's how we connect the dots, chances are we have a very, very strong and sharply defined proposition for the customer in which to provide him or her with relevant inputs in a timely manner, in a way that makes sense to them. And that's how the future of marketing, the way we understand, is going to roll out. So that really takes care of some of the industry context that I wanted to share with you. I'm happy to pass this on to Aditya, who will take you through the CDP part of the presentation, and then we'll do a Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining us. And, we're very excited to have you here to talk about marketing opportunities from an insurance perspective. And what I intend to, broadly cover is, these four things. Some perspective in terms of how do we look at starting with the customer experience in mind, and some points that I'll kind of broadly make there in terms of what we are seeing, and then we'll kind of break it down into some of the how choices that are made in trying to achieve, or the how choices that can be made in addressing some of those customer experience expectations that as marketers you have to deal with. And then just to wrap that up, a very, very quick what is the FirstHive product. The focus is really going to be the first two, and that's where we look to spend time. And of course, we'll be happy to open it up to questions. So first, to talk about start with the customer experience in mind. And I know that this is a very, very oft repeated phrase in terms of we need to start with the customer experience in mind. I was recently having a conversation with somebody who was in health insurance, and we were talking about the opportunity for driving an experience. And an example that popped up in our conversation was something like this, which says that, look, if and this happened actually with me personally as well. There was an instance where I actually used the insurance for a situation with my child, right? After that claim, there was not a single call from the health insurance company to check how my child was. That was a brilliant opportunity for the insurance company to not just be my transactional partner in paying for my health expenses, but actually being a partner in my journey of managing my child, right? And those are moments of truth. And that's a very, very valuable, opportunity when you look at it from how do you demonstrate that you're a trusted partner in the larger purpose of the engagement, not just the transactional enablement of the service that is being delivered, right? Because today there are a couple of very, very important trends that we see. Number one, across the board, customers today are looking for a relationship, and they're expecting enterprises to be custodians of their trust. And enterprises therefore have the responsibility of demonstrating that they are worthy of this custodianship. And how do you demonstrate that? It is through these small actions. Being able to bring this into action is not complicated. All it would have taken is one customer care call to say, hey, how's your child? It's been 30 days since you had that hospitalization. I hope he's doing well. But the point is, it was non-transactional and therefore not important to the marketing of that particular product. It would not have affected my renewal, and therefore it was not part of the conversation. And that was a lost opportunity, right? Similarly, but had that happened, that would have significantly enhanced trust between the consumer and the brand. The second is, today there's often repeated phrase that there's a lot of clutter and customer time is very, very distributed. Customers switch across different content and so on and so forth. But again, in this context, in a very, very interesting context conversation that I was having, this point came up about how a lot of us today, despite all our busy schedules, are able to give a few hours for binge watching our favorite OTT, for example, show, right? So it's not so much about the absence of time. The problem is of prioritization and whether you feature in the prioritization set from a customer choice that's being made. Therefore, are you part of the interruption that the customer is getting, or are you part of the conversation that the customer wants to be part of, right? And for you to bring that for you to bubble up and be part of that relevant set of brands that the customer wants to engage, becoming the custodian of trust and making sure that you are delivering seamless contextual conversations means that you're not going to be tagged as an interruption player, but as a conversation player, which means that the customer will then be willing to invest what is today at a premium, which is attention for the brand. The other thing that is also noticed today, especially in the post-COVID era, when everything is becoming digital and large volume of customer interaction is today digitally enabled, customers are not just expecting seamlessness, consistency, ease of use, and so on, but they're also willing to put money behind that and say that, look, I'm willing to pay a premium for the experience. And this is something which are very, very interesting, because what it means is oftentimes, when you look at it as a customer experience, whether it is an insurance as a category or certain other industries, the channel is looked as different from the brand. And therefore, the experience is not necessarily consistent. We often focus on individual channels, individual tools and interfaces where experience is being delivered, but the brand does not necessarily have control or demonstrate that control of experience across and make sure that it's seamless. And that is where if the opportunity is delivered to drive that consistency, then you're able to make sure that the experience, that you become part of that conversation set for the enterprise, for the consumer, and the consumer is willing to engage and actually looks at you as a partner in their purpose, not just a transaction enabler, which means that you're not a volume player, you're a value player for the customer. Right. With that, let me jump into the how choices that we've seen customers play. And because that is really where the CDP comes in. The CDP is the enabler of the how choices and ensures that it allows you to align with that purpose of the customer. Right. So first and foremost is, for you to be able to demonstrate any trust to the customer, almost table stakes is to say that, look, we actually know you as a customer, irrespective of where you talk to us. And we're able to seamlessly pick up the conversation and carry the same context across channels. And that's the first and foremost thing that the CDP does for you. The CDP essentially allows you to be able to connect, break down all of your data silos, allows you to continue to use the best of breed tools without worrying about portability of intelligence and insights from all of these different tools, so that as a brand, you continue to have complete control on the insights without being held hostage to individual tools where you have local intelligence. So in a multi-headed hydra, you actually now have a central brain that's processing everything. Right. The second is in terms of the ability to drive real time. And this is something that all of us would have experienced. In fact, I experienced this just very, very recently when I, for example, filed my taxes. I got a message from the income tax saying, hey, file your taxes. But if you've already filed, ignore it. Right? How many of us have seen a message like, but if you've already done it, ignore my message? That means that as the originator of communication, you don't know whether I've done what I'm supposed to do or not. You're not sure if I've renewed or not. Now, in certain products, this could create a concern. If you tell me, hey, check your insurance policy. If it is not renewed, please renew it. Otherwise, ignore it if you've renewed. It actually potentially creates a doubt saying, hey, look, was there a failure in the transaction? Is my cover gone? And so on and so forth. So how do you ensure that the communication stays real-time, consistent? So no matter which part of your engine a conversation has happened, the other part of the engine is aware and is able to seamlessly continue the conversation. And that is again where a customer data platform brings to forth the capability of connecting the dots and making sure that it's not just about retrospective MIS, but it is about real-time navigation of customer experience that you're able to drive. And when we say real-time, we're not talking about just the digital motions of what you have or the acquisition motions, but it really covers all aspects of your acquisition, engagement, renewals, cross-sell, and so on and so forth. The third piece is obviously something which is of interest to a lot of marketers in the space, which is the how do you ensure that you're avoiding policy switching, dropouts, renewal failures, and so on, whether it is life or non-life. This is a very, very important metric of success. And again, here, the ability to drive the right kind of communication at the right point to ensure that you're getting the outcome that is intended, rather than bombarding the user with messaging where you actually transgress onto the point of becoming an interruption player, while actually trying to help the customer renew so that they don't lose their cover. How do you ensure that you're seen as a partner in securing their interest rather than pursuing just your interest there. And that is again where we've seen how, for example, the opportunity to optimize communication can come in. In one of the insurance players, for example, we were able to consolidate over 150 different campaigns that were going out to just 18 customer journeys that were able to drive this, and which led to the same effective outcome, which means that you've significantly reduced the load in terms of interruption to the customer while driving the same outcomes for both parties involved. Right? And that becomes another very, very important value add from a CDP standpoint. The lack of single unified view is again a manifestation of the consolidated data that the CDP does by breaking down your silos. And this becomes again very important because from a customer care perspective, whether the support calls and a large volume of interactions today from a insurance perspective happens via voice, whether you're a platform that's selling, or whether you're the actual insurance company. There is a lot of conversations, or it is your distributor. A lot of conversations are actually voice conversations. How do you ensure again that seamless view so that when the call happens, not just the dispositions, but also the unstructured information is available to make sense and deliver a better experience to the customer, is something that the CDP can unlock for you. And the last one that I want to kind of share with is really where the CDP essentially enables a lot of channel enablement, and in terms of the utilization of the information within all of the different teams and all of the different arms, including the policy holders themselves. So how do you ensure that there is greater visibility and greater control that's provided to your customers so that they are also feeling safe and secure, whether it is scenarios where you're giving pre-approvals, post-approvals, an issue that comes up with renewal, a query that comes up with, let's say, a claim. How do you give real-time hands-on visibility to some of these issues? Requires you to be able to bring intelligence from a variety of different internal systems to be able to show that to the customer. And that is again where the customer data platform has a direct impact as far as the experience of the user is concerned. I know we're running out on time, so I'm not going to really belabor on this point, but FirstHive as a customer data platform is one of the first customer data platforms globally. In September 2016, this was launched. The customer data platform that FirstHive delivers is today recognized as one of the most comprehensive CDPs in the world. We are able to bring in data from over 700 plus sources, connect all of that data, make it intelligent, and make sure that it's available into a single recommendation and decision engine, along with ensuring that you have access to a lot of the underlying raw insights that are available on the platform to drive continuous improvement in your customer experience. With that, I'd love to pause here, but feel free to write. This is our team. You can write to any one of us if you want to be able to learn more. But I think this is a good time for me to now kind of pause here and maybe we open up for Q&A.
Let's start the Q&A session. The first question is for you, Aditya. So somebody has mentioned that we already have a CRM and a set of various marketing tools. What additional value will a CDP bring to an insurance company?
The typical CRM tools that would be deployed, of course, we'd love to be able to connect with you to deep dive and look at your overall stack to be able to help you look at the exact use cases that can get enabled with the CDP versus what you're unable to do with your existing stack. But broadly speaking, from a customer data platform standpoint, a CRM does not allow you to capture a lot of the unstructured data. Whereas there is a lot of intent information, a lot of insight that gets unlocked from each customer interaction. And that behavioral data is something that gets appended with the identity information and the transaction information that's available in your systems. Plus, the CDP then becomes an action system which is able to drive your interactions across all of your channels, whether it is your web, it is your mobile app, it is your channels, your point of sale, your physical presence, and so on and so forth. But please do write to us. We'd love to be able to, get in more details and make sure that we respond to that.
That's interesting, Aditya. In fact, the next question is also something really exciting where the person has asked, can CDP help in delivering code level personalization? So I think this is very specific to insurance. Yeah. Naveen, Aditya, any of you?
I'm going to answer it in a zoomed out manner. What CDP does is give you a data foundation. You can marry, sources of data that otherwise were not possible within a certain system. So what you can do is take behavioral data, demographic data, transactional data, unstructured data, put a whole lot of that together, and then try and get insights which will basically power the actions that you come out of it. Now that's essentially, and I'm going back to the earlier question also, versus CRM. That's how it distinguishes between a system that is optimized to do, a few things very well. Can it give code level personalization? Yes, potentially, if you marry a whole lot of data sources with a code generation engine and build an algorithm that matches, interest and life stage and this and that, theoretically, it is possible to say we can give you a code level personalization as well. Ultimately, whether you use this for underwriting decisioning or you use it for, predicting, where a claim is fraudulent, or use it to increase marketing engagement, all of those things really are up to you, how you end up using it. What you get is a data foundation. I don't know if Aditya, that makes sense.
Yeah, let me add to that, right, Naveen? I think the simple way to look at it is, maybe take an example which is outside the industry and something that all of us deal with, which is, let's say, retail, right? A quote level personalization is where you are essentially saying, look, can I quote differentially for potentially very similar risk profiles, but basis, let's say, a conversion likelihood, can I quote differently? Because anyway, all of the other parameters are something that's coming from your core systems, right? Which means that the only piece there is maybe there is a certain amount of discounting, maybe there is a certain amount of price navigation that you're able to do at that point. No different from, let's say, a coupon. So can you nudge a particular customer differentially to be able to go back and make sure that they're making their decision faster, or they're able to take into account the personalized quote? Maybe there is a certain benefit that you want to be able to highlight. It may not be about discounting, but it's to be able to highlight a specific benefit because there is a certain insight that you have that this kind of a persona is likely to respond better to this kind of a particular benefit that you want to be able to offer. All of that is par for the course. Like Naveen said, it's about bringing into play all of the different insight that you've now garnered by collecting intelligence and consolidating it in one place and then applying it in every situation, which is a personalized situation for that particular customer on the end of the transaction or interaction. So short answer is yes.
Okay. The next question is specifically for Naveen, where one of the attendees has asked that they have a data lake, their data lake on Microsoft Azure. What is the advantage if they run their CDP also on Azure?
So I can take that, Naveen, if you want.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, please go
ahead. The FirstHive CDP is already on Azure. We are a global co-sell partner for Azure, and therefore it plays seamlessly with the Microsoft Azure ecosystem and the other Microsoft products, Dynamics CRM, and so on and so forth. So the answer is yes, absolutely. And you will see the FirstHive and the Microsoft teams working very closely to ensure that the deployment and the outcomes that you expect are smooth and delivered. So that is part of the partnership. Naveen, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much explains it, just a little more zoomed out perspective. So from a Microsoft standpoint, all the services that Microsoft offers, including the Azure cloud, really work seamlessly across the board. And, the choice is really up to the client organization and the tech infrastructure they have. You can use CRMs, you can use CDPs, you can use multiple components from multiple vendors and put it together. So I'm zooming out and saying, ultimately, if you are on the platform, there are linkages that you will not be able to believe come from insights, analytics, data, redundancies, security framework, all of those benefits are available to you. And FirstHive and the CDP of FirstHive is, of course, very much part of that ecosystem.
We'll take one last question. The question is CDP effective only in case of known customers? Can it help nurturing non-reachable customers and prospects as well, which is, I'm sure, a major problem in insurance industry? Can CDP help in nurturing non-reachable customers and prospects? Yes, over to you both.
The way I interpret the question is, look, I have known set of customers on whom I have emails and mobiles, and I have interactions, but I don't know their email or mobile, for example. Essentially, the classic acquisition objective. The purpose of the CDP is to make sure that every interaction that a prospect has with you, how do we enable a prospect journey where we are able to bring relevant content and relevant nudges into play for you to be able to nudge the prospect along your conversion cycle? And therefore, the answer is an absolute yes. The role of the customer data platform is to give you better control on all of the breadcrumbs of interaction so that you are able to consistently nudge and optimize your conversations with customers or prospects. And therefore, a known or an unknown customer they're both always part of an acquisition cycle. Every consumer marketing company has significant proportion of unknown or anonymous interactions, which eventually post conversion or at some point in time where they give you that PII becomes a known prospect or a known customer. So that's part of the cycle, and a CDP can certainly help you there. In fact, I'd invite you, reach out to us, let us know, and we can talk you through more details there. And there's lots of use cases there.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Naveen, for taking out time from your busy schedules. I think it was a great masterclass. I think this was a great beginning for us. We are very, very excited for all the upcoming masterclasses. And thank you, audience, for staying with us, asking us such lovely questions. And we will definitely stay in touch.